Today we're making big plate chicken, a flavor-packed stew. Although it has chicken in its name, for me, the star of the show is the potatoes, and that's where we'll start. For large chunks of starchy potatoes to fully soften and become sponges for our flavors, it takes 30 to 40 minutes. That's why many recipes call for pre-cooking, sometimes even in soy sauce to give them color. Today we go one step further. We're going to pre-cook them without water for two reasons. One, most starchy potatoes contain 75 to 80% water, sufficient to generate enough steam to cook themselves without diluting flavors. Secondly, they're 15 to 20% starch. Instead of being washed away, we're in essence creating a starch slurry in this pot. I've covered the bottom with a very thin layer of neutral oil. And if this is your first time and you're slightly worried, add the world's smallest dash of water just to help them get started. Lid on. Medium-high heat. Once the lid is too hot to touch, we set this aside to simmer at low heat while we cook our garnish, the chicken. Like anything with a Sichuan influence, we start by toasting the famous Sichuan peppercorn. Yes, it's known for its numbing sensation, but it also brings a floral, citrus note, and when toasted and added in stages, a ton of layered complexity. They are, in essence, the husks of the dry fruits. And by toasting them, we really get the essential oils going, deepening the flavors. Perfect. We give them just enough time to cool down. Here's the water. There we go. And the grinding motion would further puncture the cell walls, releasing even more flavors. And besides texture, that's another reason why we don't add them whole. Perfect. Now the chicken. Hot pan, generous amount of high smoke point neutral oil. Chicken goes in. Classically, you would blanch, then shallow fry chopped chicken pieces for the Maillard reaction. Separately, you stir fry sugar in hot oil for the caramelization. For me, with both methods, you end up with way too much oil and way too much splashing for the home kitchen, and it requires a very, very hot burner for the optimal effect. So today we achieve those two reactions in a more gentle manner, searing them at medium-high heat, keeping them chunky so we could afford to be more patient, getting the browning we want without severely overcooking the chicken. And that's why it's important for this particular recipe to use chicken thighs, because they're way more forgiving. And later on, given the connective tissues, would help us form a velvety, thick braise. As you might have noticed, I've not seasoned anything yet. We don't want to front load the salt, factoring all the liquid seasoning we'll be using later. And we don't want to add the aromatic vegetables yet, because I reserve my right to skim off as much fat as I wish. If we were to add them now, we'll be taking the fat-soluble flavors with us. And this takes 7-8 minutes on each side to get meaningful browning. So be patient. Now, once everything is beautifully golden, and if they're sticking slightly, even better. We have more flavors here to work with. We push them aside and we skim off almost all of the fat. Knowing the Sichuan chili bean paste is also oily, we can always add them back in. This way you have a dish that's rich but not heavy. Very thin layer. We start building our aromatic base, starting with the ginger, for some zesty freshness and a bit of a kick. Of course, also tame whatever unwanted gamey notes you have from the chicken. Scallion white for some depth and some subtle sweetness. We will complete the Holy Trinity, by the way, but for this recipe, the garlic goes in much later for some pungent kick. Now, to make up for the sweetness and the color of the sugar color, we add a generous amount of dark soy sauce. They're deeper in color but less salty. That's why we could afford to add a bit more, especially because we're backloading our seasoning and we start scraping the bottom for the fond, for the burn bits, for the concentrated flavors. Have the color, now the sugar. We add a bit of honey for some complex sweetness. At this point, we're almost glazing our chicken thighs. Now, to start the seasoning show, Sichuan fermented chili bean paste. It has the kick, it has the color, it has the umami, it has the salinity. What is not to love? And we cook it out to further concentrate its flavors. Now we taste and adjust the seasoning. And if you need more salinity, factoring in the potatoes are coming in. A bit of light soy sauce. This will also bring the umami. Now, optional, Shaoxing wine, please don't let the shopping stop you from cooking this for some depth and even more umami. You can use dry sherry, you can just use water. Let me just look at this, you can see the flavors. And now to mop up said flavors are almost fully gelatinized sponges. Of course, we're taking all the starchy liquids with us. Now we top up with some water. Just to cover about 1/3, factoring in the potatoes would release even more moisture. And now we work backwards. Given the potatoes need a minimum of 40 minutes, however much time they've already spent here, you spend the remainder, or at least the remainder, here until they're fully fluffy, gelatinized, and have taken on the wonderful color of this dish. At this point, the recipe calls for rehydrated red dry chili, native to Xinjiang. They're mild and they're sweet. Like me, if you don't have access, skip it completely. Don't replace it with just dry chilies. They'll bring too much heat and a ton of bitterness. This dish is flavorsome enough. Of course, we layer flavors, adding our Sichuan peppercorn in stages. I forgot round 1, but you add it when you cook it. And round 1 was right after skimming. Now, lid on, and we let the potatoes finish cooking. Once the potatoes are ready, we complete the Holy Trinity by crushing some garlic for the raw pungency that we promised. And for me, definitely not optional, the red and green bell peppers. We just tear them, and they go in at the last minute to retain freshness and to give us contrasting texture. So they're almost like a palate cleanser to what is a really rich and flavorsome dish. And for someone who loves scallion green as much as I do, they balance the dish so well that I suggest that you don't add the scallion green. This is perfect. Of course, round 2 for me, round 3 for you, Sichuan peppercorn. This time for a bit of numb. Now we reduce. This will slightly cook our garnish and start breaking the surface of the potatoes, thickening our sauce. And that's big plate chicken.